Hey everybody, welcome to the Voxology Podcast. Mike, Erre, Tim Stafford, and I'd like to introduce our third guest, which is RSV, which is what I was diagnosed with yesterday. RSV, I didn't know this, is up there with influenza and COVID, and so I want to, and the reason I'm leading with this is because my brain feels like cement.
Oh.
If you could use mucus as a fuel to power like cars and cities,
Just lost all the listeners.
I would be a battery par excellence.
You'd be the new Tesla.
But we're playing hurt, and Tim's playing hurt too. Tim had some sort of intestinal thing in the middle of the night last night. So
We're really just keeping everybody in that.
yeah. So you got to want to listen to this. All right. We're not just going to make it easy, guys. With this
Why
nice
would we do that?
rosy intro. And it's so funny because I don't know when, there are markers I know when I knew I was an adult. All right. One of those markers was I started listening to like talk radio instead of music. And I was like, oh, I'm an adult now. You know what I mean? That was a big one. Then there are markers that you're middle age. And one of those is you exchange and commiserate around health issues. And so right before we got on, Tim and I were doing that for about 10 minutes. So
It's true.
yeah, WebMD predicts our impending death in the next couple of weeks. So
it's been fun.
yeah, we've had a good run, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Tim Stafford, first of all, besides intestinal distress, how are you?
Doing all right. Just finished the semester. I got to get my grades in. It's raining and cold outside, which is more my forte.
Yeah. You have Christmas decorations up, which, does that hurt you
They
at
are
all?
up.
Does that hurt your heart
No.
to bring light?
It hurts me that it brings everybody else so much more joy than the previous holiday, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Okay.
We got a nice tree and decorations. I did the outside of the house.
Nice. And
We're
what color's
rolling.
your house, Tim?
It is black.
Yep, that's the
Which-
thing.
All it does is highlight the Christmas colors.
True, and it's a really cool. Like when you first told me you were painting your house black, my first thought was, well, of course he is. My second thought was, I wonder how that looks, and then I saw it, and it looks really sweet.
Yeah, people were skeptical.
I think there was a lot of skepticism from the neighbors, probably.
It's pretty holy, though. Have you seen all those like beautiful old like churches in Sweden and Iceland, different places that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, and they're all just completely black?
Yeah, and empty. Yes, exactly. So, no, that's fantastic. So Tim and I, the Voxology podcast is so important. Tim and I are playing her today. So
That's right.
if there is
Playing
accidental
hurt on a
heresy,
Saturday.
and we're recording on a Saturday, if there is accidental heresy, there
Probably
is,
not
I mean,
accidental.
there is intentional heresy, no question. But if it's accidental heresy, just give us some grace today and, whatever. So we hope you guys are doing well. Last week we recorded an hour before the Ohio State-Michigan game. And it was a good thing we recorded before that and not after,
true.
because after, it was a dark week. I actually started feeling the RSV symptoms after the loss.
Right up to the game.
So I don't know. That could be coincidence. So it's been a dark week. I'm not great at laying around, so I've been literally in my house by myself. Well, Seth was home with me 3 days because he has it too. But it's just been like, I don't do well when I'm just, so I had to turn on some Christmas music. My wife came in and was like, why is every single light on in the house? And I'm like, because I need it. I need light, life. But today, what I thought we'd do is we got so many emails from the last couple of episodes, and they're wonderful and they're honest and they're heartbreaking. And so I thought, okay, there's maybe one more bit we could do on this topic that fits. and in response to some of the emails. And then we got an email that doesn't fit into that sort of lamenty disappointment with God category. And I thought we'd start with that. But we got it from one of our Patreon listeners. Oh, and speaking of Patreon, by the way, it's December. And and for some reason, there are some incredibly generous people who do year-end giving. And every year we have people who give generously to Voxology at the end of the year. We want to remind everybody we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are crowdfunded, so we don't rely on anything else but your support. And everything you give is tax deductible, if that matters. If you're in that kind of bracket where that matters to you, then that is good news, indeed, besides the good news of Jesus. Right. So this is someone from Patreon who wrote in, just wanted to say that you guys rock.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the time you've invested in this movement. Ooh.
We spent the first few minutes establishing how hard we rock.
Dude, we do rock hard. Absolutely. I've been deconstructing and reconstructing what I've believed, and your words have been very formational throughout. So that's either good news or bad news for you. I'm not totally sure. I found myself in Nashville this weekend and stopped by your church and really enjoyed the service. And if I didn't meet you, I'm sorry. Do you have any words of wisdom for someone looking for a church to call home? I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And doggone it, one of the things we get most asked is, hey, do you know of any good churches in X, Y, or Z? And our answer is almost always, no, we don't. So that's a dream someday that we put together a kind of a index of churches that are that align.
It's very hard to
some
verify.
of the things we're talking about. Well, that's why we're going to rent an RV.
Oh, I
Stafford.
like it.
We can visit. We could visit 104 churches a year.
We'll call it breaking good.
That's funny. Yes, and we could sell merch out of the van. It'll be great, or tacos. Either way.
Oh, I love tacos.
But one of my favorite questions to answer is, what do you look for? What should you look for in a church? And the reason it's one of my favorite questions to answer is because my answer keeps growing and changing over the course of many, many years. And it keeps narrowing, to be really honest. So, Tim, I gave this some thought. I've got a few. Can I lead with these, and then I want you to chime in as we go?
Dog.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah, dog.
So, first of all, when we talk about a church, we're talking in this instance about an organized institution that does weekend services and ministry programs and so on. Because you're part of a church, obviously, already, if you're a follower of this Jesus, and I know you would know this, but just making that kind of important theological point. Secondly, I would no longer go, it used to be, for me, I would go to churches based on how good the teaching was. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean orthodox. I mean how relevant or entertaining or profound it was. And it had to be, it had to be relevant and biblical and whatever else. These days, I think that's one of the worst reasons to pick a church. And I'm not saying that good teaching doesn't matter. I'm saying the universe is flooded with good teaching on the interwebs. You can find Bible knowledge anywhere you want to go. Just go to Bible Project. There's so much good stuff. If you're a part of a great community and the community checks all the boxes, but the teaching isn't that great, I think that's a horrible reason not to plug in, because that is one of the most, that's one of these days, the least important. And I don't mean I'm talking about within the bounds of the loose bounds of orthodoxy. I'm not talking about.
If it's abusive teaching.
Yeah.
The community's
nice. Flee. But I'm talking about it's straight, straight down the road stuff. And it's gentle and it's humble, but it's not totally charismatic or, incredible to listen to. That there's so much out there that is like, that's not a great reason to not participate. You know what I'm saying? I think that's different now.
Yeah.
But here's some things that are non-negotiables for me. Now, I'm not saying, and Tim will have his own, I'm not saying these should be non-negotiables for you. And nor am I saying that churches that don't do the things aren't real churches or aren't real Christians. I'm not saying that at all. But this is like, if I'm going to invest in a community, money, time, energy, passion, relationships, these are the kinds of things I'm going to look for that for me, just me, are non-negotiable. First is that there is shared leadership, that there's not a CEO model where one person holds all the power, where there are built into and baked into every like level of the church are checks, balances, mutual accountability, reciprocity, mutuality. If the church is driven by a single charismatic leader fully, and I used to be that kind of person, and I've just seen how not healthy that is for the church and the person that's designated the charismatic person. So shared leadership, number one, and shared leadership for reals. I don't mean like, oh, here's my executive pastor and all of these people are just, hired by the senior leader and report to the senior leader, so they don't have real power. We have to have shared leadership means other people have real power and seats at the table. Second non-negotiable for me is that includes women at every level of leadership. Absolutely. I think there is something, we've talked about it. I think the Bible totally allows for it and encourages it. And I think wisdom in these days about how gnarly everything is, wisdom demands we have women at every level of church leadership with real power. Thirdly, transparency about money and power. I don't mean like I don't mean that, you're up there and they're talking about money every week or whatever, and here they put the little thing in the church bulletin that says, here's how short we are. But they explain the priorities for how they spend money, and that they're transparent, and their budget matches their explanations. And they're transparent about how power works. Who can fire the charismatic leader? Does the charismatic leader have job reviews? Not just reviews from his or her pals at the top, but like in 360 degrees, right? These are the kind of things I'm so interested in because of all the abuses that are out there. This is a little one, but a big one. If a church talks a lot about itself.
Did you see the memes that went around that were like, if Jesus could do an undercover boss and go into your church, what would he say?
Oh, snap. Dude. Okay, we need to send you in. That would be really funny. Churches that don't talk a lot about themselves. So the theological point is the announcement of the church isn't how great the church is. The announcement of the church is the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And so I've been around churches and been parts of churches that will celebrate their birthdays, their anniversaries. They will tell their origin stories. They will talk about how fast they're growing and how they're running out of seats and how big and important their programs are. And they will say Jesus gets credit for this, but the focus is how great the church is.
Yeah.
Flee. You want to be around a group of people who don't care how great the church is. You want to be around a church that's centered set in all the ways we've talked about. It's gracious. It's humble. It's curious. It doesn't always have to be right. It keeps the main thing the main thing. It doesn't draw boundaries every opportunity it gets, and it doesn't engage in culture warring. Two more. There's room for disagreement with leadership and authority. Disagreement isn't a threat. That the leadership is secure or the teacher or whoever is secure to be questioned.
Yeah, and we've gotten emails from that even this week, and
Yep.
Twitter was flooded with it too. Mostly women asking what seemed like very gentle, clarifying questions, getting just pushed out.
Absolutely. Two more. I was mistaken. One is a very gentle use of power. Is power top down in that instance? And then joy. Is there joy? And then my secret, I don't know that I've mentioned this, but my very secret sign for church health is, are there therapists that go to the church? And if there are, that always makes me feel better. So notice I didn't say anything about believing in the Trinity and the virgin birth, and because I've been around churches that say yes to all those things that are awful. And I've been around churches that are really fuzzy on those things and yet do a great job of loving people. Yeah. I'm always, and we say this all the time, theology absolutely matters. Good theology does not save us, it helps us. But bad theology really does harm us. Yeah. So if you find a centered, set church, you're going to find clarity around the most important things and lots of room to disagree around the lesser important things. So that would be my list, Tim. What do you want to add to that?
I think you nailed it. I think for me, transparency and humility are really big. I'm so burnt out, or I was, have been so burnt out by churches with like extravagant green rooms that the higher ups hang out in before the services or in between the services and create a hierarchy between the people.
Ooh, that's good hierarchy. Yes.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
The way they treat each other and the congregants. I've been going back and forth. We have a lot of friends who are like, and I don't agree with this necessarily, but we hear it quite a bit that they don't trust anyone who makes money doing ministry. Like pastors shouldn't get paid. All pastors should be bivocational. And
yep.
I understand the impetus of saying that. I think it's hard to expect anyone to get trained or to go to seminary if they are not going to be, if there's no career path or whatever, stability within that kind of thing. But
that would change. I mean, if you wanted to change dramatically the face of the American church, that's the one thing you could do.
It would be something. I don't know what it would do.
Yeah.
But it would be something that, I don't know. I didn't write any of this down, but there's probably 100 things. That's why I don't attend a church currently, but I can't stand things that are done for the sake of just doing them without context or meaning or value or depth or explanation or anything. So, and I see that a lot in churches where they just have a lot of rhetorical devices that they'll use over and over again. And it's like, why are we here and why are we doing this?
Right.
And what does the church look like in the community at large, not just in the building, but
that's good. Yep.
How do they exist within your town?
Yeah.
And if it's in complete active service and you see that church everywhere, like people volunteering and doing it with joy and getting their hands dirty and doing it because they care about their community, I think that's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And we have some churches in our town that are like that
absolutely
are one of the reasons I lament that mega church coming in is there are churches and pastors who I'll see pop up all over the place that they're intent on serving their community.
Yeah.
And trying to be there and help people in need as much as possible. And that's, to me, is very inspiring.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know how you find that stuff because people really, really denounce church hopping, and I understand why. But it's hard to find. It can be very hard. It can be like a needle in a haystack sometimes trying to find like the...
Well, and it's not always readily apparent. How somebody uses power, that doesn't show itself in like the new member luncheon.
Well, you see it the most in the LGBTQ community because there are so many folks who are looking for churches. I want to be a part of a church, and I'm not welcome in most churches.
Right.
And then so you have churches who lead with "we are whatever," and then once they get in the church, it's like, no, it's not how it is.
Right. Right.
And so we hear that lament over and over and over again. Like they want to get people in the doors.
Yeah.
But once you're in there, it's a different.
Yeah.
It can be a very different.
Now let's give some disclaimers because it's kind of like I've read senior pastor job descriptions that could only be filled by Jesus. You know what I mean? Like they're
totally.
So we don't want to present.
That's a fascinating conversation.
It is totally. But we don't want to present that there is this ideal out there. Because even the earliest churches were screwy. So this is this whole picture I'm painting. It's a continuum, And there are churches that get some of these things and kill them and then struggle in other places. I think the most important part is to find a place that's gentle, that uses power very gently.
Doesn't exert power over, but
Yes.
uses power to serve.
Power to serve, the power to invite.
Power to weakness.
Totally. I mean, if I had to, and again, I'm not even speaking like theologically, I'm speaking in the American church and how ugly the fruit of what we've done is exposed. Like, we have to look for those dynamics, and it takes a while. I don't consider that church shopping. Church shopping is when I'm evaluating a church solely on the basis of whether or not I liked it.
Right.
But you
the
should
music
be.
hit right, or
Did I like? I mean, you evaluate it
was
the
I
same
inspired?
way. You'd evaluate it the same way you'd evaluate a movie.
Yeah.
You know, I'd see that again, and it's like, no, it's not for you. But there are, I think, markers that are markers of health that churches grow into. So we're not trying to describe the perfect church. There is no such thing. And I'm willing to flex.
That's a good preface.
I'm willing to flex on some of these things. Like if a church says, hey, we hold this issue differently than you, Mike, but it's okay that you hold the view that you do. Great.
What did you used to always say when you planted the Vox Church? It was, if we can agree on who Jesus said he was, we can break bread or something to that effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the centered set, modality. I don't have to. I could go to a Reformed church, even though I'm not Reformed, if it was Reformed in the right way. I could go to a charismatic church, even though I'm not totally charismatic, if it was charismatic in a gentle way.
I really appreciate, and this might not be for everybody, but I really appreciate leadership that, and maybe this is part of the transparency and the humility, that when they learn that they were wrong about something, it's just like I was wrong, and here's like new information has come to light. Like I'm going to change because I've learned, and I don't see that a lot. There's a lot of arrogance, and I think out of fear of losing a platform or losing congregants or losing your job or whatever. And I understand that that's a scary thing, but the transparency and being able to say I was wrong and I've learned. That's why I like Peter. That's why I always come back to Peter. I always think Peter's fascinating because he'll be kind of staunch about something, then he'll be proven wrong. Like, oh, this is the true way. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
and he'll go with the centurion or like it's like there's just these stories where he had to learn continually as a very high up leader or whatever, however you want to phrase that.
Right.
Was continually learning and changing course because he was just like, he was a disciple, through and through. He had to learn a lot, and it often would take 3 times of telling him for him to really get it. But he would change course. And I like that in leadership. I like leaders who are just like, I learned something else. I changed my mind.
See, that's, it's so funny, Tim. We do Q&As at the end of, I think I've talked about this, at the end of our talks. And I consider myself a semi-intelligent person, and I'm usually quick on my feet and can do Q&A okay, but there are questions that our little tribe comes up with, and I don't have the foggiest clue, and I will say I have no idea. I don't know, and the response that I don't know generates is so much more significant than the great answer.
Yeah.
To prove your point that people aren't really looking for the great answer. And sometimes they are, but sometimes they want to be invited on the journey with someone else. They're like, I don't know what the answer is. Let's figure that out. Let's find out. I remember in my younger days, which, weren't far back, I would feel a pressure to always have to have something to say.
Absolutely.
And if I knew it a little bit, I would inject more confidence in the answer than what I probably had.
Well, if you're a good orator, you are able to also twist those words around and give a response that sounds like you're addressing the question, but you're not.
Yes. So I just want to remind people, the reason I have a long list is because I've done all of those things. Like, I'm guilty of all of those things.
Yeah.
I've I've always had a heart for the church. I've always had a heart for Jesus, but I inherited a way of seeing the church that really fit my personality as the singular, charismatic, important leader. And there was part of my ego that really loved that. And then I realized how absolutely shitty I was at that. It brought out the worst parts of me.
Well, it's so hard. Like, how many pastors did we talk to at the non-friends, and I've had coffee with a few since, that want to steer the ship in a healthy direction and want to change and want to learn and grow and be like obedient disciples to what Jesus is seeking and asking for, and they get fired.
Yeah.
There's a fear,
Oh,
a very real fear that's backed up by
real
proof.
stories.
Yeah, that this is what happens. And it's like, that can be, so coming in, like, when you came in, a couple decades ago, or when someone comes into it and the machine is built in a very certain way and you have a very specific role to play within that.
Yeah.
Like, you either adapt or die.
Yeah. Well, and you have
that sounds really dramatic, but it's like,
well, and you have a financial interest.
Yeah.
That's the extra part. See, if you were bivocational, then some of these pastors would have no trouble just walking away going, well,
Exactly.
I'm going to go do this other thing.
And some of those coffee dates that I had were like, I went to seminary.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do with
Right,
my life? I have
right.
children.
My whole
what am I going
training.
to do?
Yes, yes,
That's,
yes.
I can't, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yep. I've wrestled with that. I've applied to the post office. I thought that would be a fun job.
I have one of my best friends just stopped being a worship pastor and became a postman.
Yeah.
And he's very happy right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Or UPS. I thought about UPS because you wear shorts all year and you're just slamming those trucks everywhere. It's beautiful.
One last thing. We were talking about Black Friday stuff and kind of capitalism in my classroom. And talking about certain people that were pushing back against the structures of, like, Shane Claiborne's been very like, hey, don't spend any money today.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about a company like Patagonia. I think it was Patagonia a couple of years ago. Like, they have been really pushing the go outside, be outside on Black Friday. Like, don't spend money on us, go out and be outside and be in nature. And the guy sold the company, he like kept trying, from what I understand, I'm sure I'll get emails that tell me I'm wrong or that wasn't Patagonia, but
That's right.
Something to the effect of like trying really hard not to have a really successful brand in that way.
Yeah.
And trying to really push communal and environmental things. And I will often think of that guy when I was thinking about churches, or even your buddy that we had on from the church, Gibbons.
Gibbons, yes.
Kind of like almost like, I'm not trying to build a mega church, but I'm such a sincere person. Right. People are drawn to me anyway. And just trying to deal with that tension of like, I'm not trying to be Elvis.
Right.
But at the same time, when I'm doing things well and loving people well, people want to be a part of that.
Sometimes that happens. You got it.
Yeah.
You bet. One last disclaimer, because this is all, greatly rehearsed. And so, no, I don't know how you would put this, Tim, but my impression based on our conversations is that we are both still very, very positive about the church. In other words, I'm obviously a part of one and will always be a part of one. Now, the part of one can look 1,000 different ways, right? That I don't just mean like attending a service when I say part of one. But I have loads of hope because I've seen in my personal experience the goodness of some of what it is that we're talking about, that it really does make a big difference. And so I'm really hopeful for the church. I think the abuse that's coming to light is a good thing. I think that the Lord is, I do think Jesus is behind the exposing of all of this. And I don't mean in any direct way. I mean, he's not like, but I mean, in the sense of this is something that Jesus wants for his church to walk in truth and accountability and humility. And there is so much the American church has to repent for. And the problem is, the more and more we get exposed to the callousness and the disappointment, the harder it is for the world to receive our repentance, our lament, and then our guidance on anything. Why would they trust us? Why would anyone trust us about, hey, here's how you should use your money, or here's how you should take care of your body sexually, or whatever. So that's the part I really grieve, is that I'm still very pro-church. I'm very pro-Jesus. I'm very pro-Bible. And I do think like what we do matters. I really, really do. I think churches matter. And what's going to save the church in America are mediocre churches of around 80 people. That's the future of the church, and it's going to be awesome. So anyway, those are my thoughts. The great question. Anytime we get a church question, I kind of get fired up.
We here at the First Church of Golgotha are
yes,
trying very hard.
Tim, you're starting to get requests, dude. I need you right now to put it on air that you will find that quote, that you will make a sticker.
I have it right here, actually.
All right.
But I will.
And make a sticker.
But I do, like in the deconstruction, part of my quote unquote deconstruction process has been trying to like really pick apart why do we gather?
Right.
And understand what was the human plan from the beginning, and then how do we partner in that? And I have tremendous hope in Jesus and tremendous hope in the plan that Jesus put forth and what he's trying to reconcile and do with humanity. I have much less church. I have hope in the churches and the body of believers learning how to
that's what I mean.
Hear that, see that. Yeah.
I don't mean the organization.
I have much less church in the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
But even that's tempered with like what you said. I think the 80%. I remember being I was on a traveling worship team, and we'd go around to all these different churches, all like different denominations, all like different sizes. And one of the ones we went to is out in the woods up in like far northern California, and it was probably 50 to 60 people maybe. Huh. And they had one or two microphones, and that was it. In a very small room. And what they would do during the prayer time of the service is they put the mics in the middle of the like walkway, aisleway, and people would just get up and share. And then they would pray in real time with people, and everyone knew each other and knew each other's lives well.
Yeah.
And they just existed together and then fought together, not fought like they fought for each other within, not against like institutions, but for like just well-being in life.
Yep.
And that was 20 years ago or more. I don't know. It was a while ago, but I am still affected by what I saw with that group of people. Like there was something happening in that room that was so intentional and so based in truth and not in, again, rhetoric or anything other than just like loving each other in the name of Jesus and trying to model that well within their small little community. And I was like, man, this is really inspiring.
I love that.
And I haven't seen it much since then.
No.
But you don't, because you only see, the Driscolls and the Chandlers and different people that are really loud and all over the news. So you only see the car crashes. You rarely see the person who's bringing food to people's doorsteps or
Absolutely.
Whatever. So.
Totally, dude. And we just have to acknowledge they outnumber everybody else. Even though they're not the loudest voices, they're the most. I'm around too many good Jesus people who like are genuinely trying to work this thing out in all of the best ways. And it doesn't mean perfect. I mean, that's golly. I mean, there's got to be room for us to grow in our understandings of how to treat LGBTQ people. Or
that's the center set, right? Like it's a posture.
If you do it right, that's the thing. Is that you've got a collection of people together who aren't at the same place, and that's okay, and that being at the same place isn't the goal.
And some of the people that think they're right by the well really aren't.
I mean, you did a heck of a diagram illustrating that back in the day. Anyway, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful question. I want to talk just briefly, and then we're back, man. We're back. We got at least four more Revelation episodes. We've got 2 on judgment,
Then the world has ended.
And then we've got 2 on new creation. So we might be done. And then we've got a John Mark Comer interview in a couple of weeks. He's a dear friend. And then, that'll take us through the year, bro. We'll be done. Hey, I have a question for our audience. I have an idea for our next series that I'm not going to share because I haven't shared it with Tim yet. Oh. But is there anything you'd want to talk about? I'd be interested to know. And so if you want to email us at hello@voxpodcast, and I don't mean necessarily questions, but like topics or pieces of the Bible or whatever, I'd be interested to know. We've been doing this. By the way, we forgot to celebrate our 8-year anniversary because we don't want to talk a lot about ourselves. But 8 years, dude. So we've done a lot of this, and we are still amazed we get to do it every week. It's such a freaking privilege. But I don't know if there's something burning in your heart that you say, man, these clowns ought to give this a shot. We're in. hello@voxpodcast.com.
Or start a conversation on Facebook or something. See if we could do a poll. Whatever. Go on.
No polling. I want blue sky. I want out of nowhere. I want the person that says we should really talk about aliens. And we probably won't. But what a great idea. Oh, well, maybe we will for our next year's Halloween episode. We'll have Tim Stafford do a live report from Area 51.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
We need to buy a Voxology RV. So you know how the prosperity teachers have private jets? Our requests are so much smaller than that. We would just like a luxury RV to travel around, to go to churches, rate them according to an arbitrary scale, and to interview people. And it would be awesome.
This would actually be a blast. I think I texted you and our mutual friend when I was up in like Eureka. I was walking around and I was just like, it would be so much fun to just like experience the American church as a whole and just travel around the country and like make a documentary or something out of it while we're doing it.
Well, what we could do is, do you remember Mystery Science Theater?
Absolutely.
Like have 3 of our heads watching sermons. I mean, again, this is horrible and whatever, but it would be funny. All right.
That's what we do in our free time anyway.
Well, yeah, there are. My algorithm loves to give me sermons on Instagram. All right. So I want to talk this episode. I want to talk about the hiddenness of God.
Ooh.
And I encountered this. This is an intellectual problem. I have a grad school degree in philosophy of religion, and the hiddenness of God, that was one of my thesis topics, was the hiddenness of God. If God values our belief so much, then why doesn't he do more to ensure it? But it's also a pastoral problem. Like, how come I don't feel God's presence? My son, Nate, wrestles with this one all the time. Like, you say that God's there. I believe he exists everywhere. But how come I don't feel him or see him or sense him? And it's that pastoral bit that I want to just talk about. And it fits because it's part of the God who disappoints everybody. It's part of disorientation. But I wanted to pull it out as its own separate thing to say that the experience of not experiencing God is very normal in the text, and that we should never draw conclusions about God or about us from that. So the Bible calls this the hiddenness of God. Why does God allow us to feel his absence, even though intellectually we know he is present? Right? I think we'd all agree, those of Jesus, he never leaves us, he never forsakes us, he never abandons us. We intellectually agree that he is everywhere, and that it's not like God shows up when, like we use that language, hey, God really showed up. We've talked about this before. God doesn't show up. God is everywhere already and always at work. So it's not like, hey, God was off doing something else and we had such a great, worship chorus that he showed up. Or like we take Jesus to some unreached people group. What a load of nonsense that is. Yet, in the Bible, we talk about God's omnipresence. He exists everywhere. But also we talk about God's manifest presence. Manifest presence is where God reveals his omnipresence in a way that human beings can perceive. So it's the cloud on top of the mountain, or the pillar of fire in front of Israel. It's the what are other examples of the glory of the Lord filling the temple in a way that everyone knew. So we distinguish between his omnipresence, which is he's present everywhere and at work, and his manifest presence, showing that he's present in a way that we can perceive. And that happens, right? I mean, there are times even in the ministry of Jesus, Jesus will kind of unveil his glory, like the transfiguration, and you're like, oh, there's a little more going on here than just some, peasant from Galilee. So the question we're asking isn't, is God real? That's a great question, but that's not this question. Nor are we asking, is God present everywhere? That's a great question. It's not the question we're asking. We're assuming that God is real, and we're assuming that God is everywhere, and we're assuming that God can and does manifest his presence in ways that human beings can see that he's there. Why doesn't he do it more often? That's the question we want to wrestle with. Does that make sense, Stafford?
Yeah.
All right.
I already have a bunch of questions just from that.
Just from that?
Yep.
This is the great gift that you are, my friend. All right, so let me some of this can sound really cliche, and I'm even cringing as I'm anticipating some of my. So, have you ever been around a cliche that is totally a cliche until you experience it, and then it doesn't become a cliche anymore? It becomes something deep and abiding and true for you?
Probably.
That's what some of this is for me. So I've gone through seasons where I've experienced some of these things, and I'm not sure I describe them in the same way now that I would have back then. But seasons of intense dryness, the felt perception of God's absence. There are seasons where the Bible is alive, prayer, like, dude, I see answers to prayer, like just like screaming off the page. I don't know if that metaphor makes sense. I've really felt, or what I thought to be, the presence of God. And then there have been seasons where all of that is absent. The Bible doesn't make any sense. It's dust. I'm not interested. Worship, nothing. And so the first thing I want to do is talk about how in the scriptures, this is a normal part of life with Yahweh and Yeshua. And so just a brief sort of, and we're acknowledging, on the one hand, God can't hide himself. The heavens declare the glory of God. Right? God, this is in Dallas Willard's words, this is a God-bathed universe. So in one sense, God can't hide. But in another sense, he can hide his manifest presence from us. Make sense, that distinction? Mm-hmm. So Isaiah, right in the middle of talking about how powerful God is and how God is real compared to the idols of the nations, he just has this line where he says, truly you are a God who hides himself. And you're like, that's really interesting. And in the Psalms, you get 12 times, 9 of these in the Psalms, where God hides his face, it says. Psalm 10, why do you stand far off, Lord? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? How long, Psalm 13, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Awake, Lord, why do you sleep? Rouse yourself. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face and forget our misery and oppression? Psalm 44. Right? We would call these Psalms of disorientation, of course. But there's an added juice to them. It's like, God, you're actively hiding from us.
Yeah, I don't just not see you.
You're hiding. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
It's not a passive. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you have the hiddenness around Jesus' coming. I mean, the Christmas story is so overexposed. We just don't appreciate how dumb and ridiculous it is, right? Here is, she was probably 11 or 12, Mary was, and she had no family name, no relatives of note. She's literally a girl from nowhere doing nothing, who is nothing at all significant. You could not find a weaker vessel in ancient Judaism. She's not male. She's not a priest. That's why it's so interesting that Luke starts the Christmas story with Zechariah, who's in the temple. He's a priest. He's older, and he gets struck mute because he doesn't believe the promise of the angel. Where Mary, who's the exact opposite. She's young versus old. She's female versus male. She's not a priest versus him being a priest. And she accepts this promise of the angel. It's just this beautiful thing Luke does to even set up the dynamic throughout the whole rest of the story, that God is going to use the hidden, the lowly, the easily overlooked to fulfill his purposes in the world. And that's the whole Christmas story. But think about how hidden Jesus is. We know nothing about the first 30 years of his life. We know nothing about how he looked. We know nothing about what he sounded like. We know nothing about his relation with his parents other than one episode when he was 12. That's weird.
Yeah.
Right? We know nothing about his dad after that one incident. We just know his dad isn't around when his ministry takes off. And then when his ministry takes off, Jesus is doing it in this really hidden part of Israel, in this hidden part of the Roman Empire. And he's doing it in a way where he's asking people, hey, I don't really want you to tell anybody I'm doing this. The news gets out anyway, of course. But then when the crowds get too big, he'll offer a hard teaching, or he'll teach in parables to hide his teaching from those who really aren't interested in hearing what he has to say. And then he'll tell stories about his movement that all have to do with smallness and weakness and hiddenness, like the smallest seed, right? Or a little bit of yeast, right? Or this tiny bit of treasure hidden in a vast field, right? The whole thing is veiled. His glory is veiled. Like when Paul talks about him in Philippians, right? He has equality with God and yet took the very form of a servant. He veiled himself and became obedient even unto death, right? So why Bethlehem? Why shepherds? Why Nazareth? I mean, just like the whole operation was hidden and quiet. And that's what Christmas, I mean, that's the shock of the Christmas story. And we've lost that entirely, of course, and made it about spectacle and finding him in the glitzy and, whatever. Of course, we've done that. But so the fact that God hides is, I think, really well established in the text. And then the question becomes, well, why? Why do it this way? And here's where you could get easily into Clichéville. And so I want to acknowledge the potential for some of these to sound like cliches, but I'm going to say them because here at the Voxology podcast, we realize cliches can sometimes be true and real. So one reason why he hides from us, and again, I cringe a little bit, but it's so that we can hide from him. One of the most fascinating things that the Bible begins with is this picture of Adam and Eve in a garden who take a bit of fruit that they weren't supposed to have, and immediately they realize they're naked, and so they cover themselves, a form of hiding. And then God, because this is the temple garden and God is dwelling there, they hide from God when they sense God's approach. Now, in one sense, and God asks, where are you? Now, obviously we know that God knows where they are. Obviously we know that God exists everywhere and that, there's really no way for us to hide from God. But if God didn't veil himself to some degree, it would be impossible for us to function as free agents, right? I mean, no one can look upon the glory of God and live. And so, even when John, this disciple that Jesus loves, gets a glimpse of Jesus in his glory, he falls face down as though dead. So there has to be some sense that God is veiled to allow human beings to have real power, real agency, real love, real autonomy in the world. That makes sense, right?
These are big. I feel like that's an entire episode on just that. What does it mean that, yeah.
Yeah. Another way we hide from God in the text is through rebellion, right? I mean, the connection when Paul talks about things like you can quench the Spirit of God, you can grieve the Spirit of God, like God hides his face when we're mistreating each other. And I don't mean that he's not seeing it, but I just mean, if you're out murdering and pillaging, it's not surprising you don't feel warm and fuzzy with, the God of justice and mercy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we can hide from God in all sorts of ways. And I've used religion. Religion is my favorite place to hide from God. Because I can keep God at arm's length, but immorality, bad place to hide from God, because you actually are exposed to how much you need him at that point. And again, all of this can be cliche. I acknowledge it. I get it. All of this could just sound like some pumped up, super, hey guys, let's just, if God seems far away, guess who moved? I mean, that is asinine. What we're talking about instead is, why did God actualize a universe where we can feel distance from him and feel his absence? And one of the reasons I think it is because he would overwhelm us otherwise, and we would be robbed of what it is to bear his image. So that's answer number one. And these aren't answers, these are clues. I mean, I don't even know, I'm sure there's more to say here. Clue number two. And this one, man, again, Clicheville. But you have all of these texts in the Bible that talk about the hidden purposes of God, or a mystery that was hidden with God. And it was like God unfolds, we call it progressive revelation, but God kind of unfolds the fullness of himself over time. And there's a veiling that happens prior to new revelation, I guess. I even cringe, using that phrase, but like Galatians will say, at just the right time, Jesus came as one born under the law. Or in Colossians, Paul will talk about a mystery kept hidden for the ages, that Christ in you, Gentiles, the hope of glory. There's this progressive thing that we get, that unfolds over time, that God is slow and deliberate. And I mean, a dumb analogy would be the way that you would veil yourself from Shauna if you had a surprise birthday party. You had a wonderful thing coming for her, and yet you had to veil yourself in some ways so as to not give that away. Now, again, dumb example, but that's kind of what this is picking up, that God veils his purposes and unfolds them over time. Okay. And I don't know if he still does that, because a lot of that hidden language is about the coming of Christ and how Christ came and who Christ came for. So I don't know that that's something that God still does. What I don't want people to do is to go, well, there are three answers to my prayers. God says yes, God says no, God says slow. And so, and I don't know. I don't know if that's how it works. I'm just looking at the New Testament.
Seems awfully limiting.
Well, I'm looking at the New Testament and saying, what hints do we get about why God operates in a veiled way, even though he's everywhere? And so there seems to be some element of time involved there. Seems to be element of some agent, like human agency involved there.
Yes.
There also seems to be some desire for partnership. And this is going to sound cliche. I'm sorry, I'm apologizing so much, but are
you sorry you're apologizing?
God, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry I'm Canadian and I'm apologizing. God wants to be sought. And the reason he wants to be sought is because he wants to be partnered with. So there are all of these texts, and Jeremiah 29 is like the big one, where God says, you're going to go into exile. For 70 years, I'm not going to talk to you. Anyone who claims to speak for me is a liar. You're to seek the good of that city. I'm not going to be speaking at all. But at the end of 70 years, because I know the plans I have for you, if you seek me, you will find me with all of your heart. Or even when Jesus, in talking about prayer, says, ask and seek and knock. He veils himself to provoke agency and participation from us. You know what I mean? Like when God is fighting a battle for his people and says to Moses, hey, Moses, make sure your arms are lifted, because when they're lifted, we'll be winning. And when they're not, we'll be losing. God obviously does not need Moses, to do anything. But that whole picture is a picture of God veiling his power so that Moses can participate in the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then lastly, my wife just said, text or call us. All right, so hold on a second. Ladies and gentlemen, this is real. This is staying in here. Hi, we're recording, so this is going to go out on the internet. Say nice things. Go ahead.
Are you kidding me right now?
I'm not kidding you right now.
I have RSV. We both have sinus infections. His RSV has probably cleared itself up.
You both have RSV?
Well, no, his was not positive. She said his probably ran its course.
Okay, what do you have?
RSV and a sinus infection.
Awesome. I want you to know that our audience will hear that and respect that and pray for you.
I appreciate that. So if you want to say that, everybody on the podcast.
Hi, buddy.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Also, Justy, is that rash clearing up? Did you get any cream for that?
Right now, I don't have a rash.
You're terrible.
Okay. If you want to keep that in, great. It's fine. I don't know if they could hear anything. All right. Now this one, man, this is the one I struggle with right here. Those other ones kind of on an intellectual level, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, right?
But they restructure a lot.
They do.
That's the thing.
Well, think about how you have to veil yourself from your kids to allow them to mature, right?
Yeah, so that's a good entry point, but then you start extrapolating it out to not two human beings veiling, but a spiritual entity that's capable of creating a universe veiling to us, but then it's still requesting or wanting, desiring that partnership.
Right.
It's just the more you start to pull the threads on it, it starts to like, well, this provokes larger questions.
Oh, of course.
Which is, again, where the national park thing, where it's like, we really do want we preach with the pamphlets.
Yeah.
We want the pamphlets. We want the flyers because the actual park itself is overwhelming and, mysterious and confusing.
That's right. But let's talk about you and Mazzy.
Okay.
All right.
Surprised she hasn't come down yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked because you're soloing today. So Mazzy, I mean, she might be like, if Seth is a stick of joyful dynamite in the world, Mazzy is a stick of joyful chaos in the world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. She
is just marvelous. But think about how you have to veil yourself with her. You veil knowledge from her, like things she wants to know, but she's not ready for. And that's normal, right? You're not being mean when you do that. It's like,
right.
Hey, you're not ready to hear this yet. Like my kids now are getting to know me and my weaknesses and my mistakes as a human being far beyond the role of dad that I played prior to that.
Right.
But I veiled that part. I have to veil my power so that they can do things themselves, even if they fail doing them. Right? I have to veil my knowledge because I could solve problems, but it's worth it for them. So there is something about in relationship, when you're in relationship and there's a power imbalance, that veiling can be an act of love and push kind of towards maturity.
Totally. I see it in the classroom. Like students, it's been documented that people don't learn in lecture halls.
Yes.
But they learn in conversation and that kind of stuff. So in the classroom, they always want to know what my opinion is, but all I do is ask questions to provoke them to pursue the truth.
Yes.
And to know why, and then gather evidence along the way. So I see it in that respect. Like I see the value in, offering tidbits to help provoke a pursuant spirit within the other.
Right.
Those are such vague terms.
I know, seriously. Totally. So let's play with this just a little more.
Yeah.
And again, I'm test driving this stuff. I'm not, this is stuff that I've thought about for a long time, and I don't know how I feel about it. But it at this point, it rings true, and it seems to fit into some of the texts, that are problematic. Why does God come in a veiled, hidden sort of way? And the answer, well, in one sense, he's not hidden. I mean, you look outside and you're like, man, the heavens declare the glory of God. And in another sense, you get this intimacy with God, and you're promised intimacy with God, and then you just don't have that. Now, either we're defining it wrong, we're doing it wrong, God doesn't do it the way we're taught, I don't know. But I want to present the idea that this is a really normal part of Christian experience, and that there's nothing to be worried about. Our mutual friend had a great line. I asked him, over the summer, I asked him, hey, how he'd been growing. And he ended up giving an answer, and then he emailed me with a fuller answer later. And the fuller answer was, I'm tired of feeling like I have to be growing. Mm-hmm. I just want to be okay being okay. And I thought that was a really sort of, profound answer, that if you're in a place where it's just dry and it's dust and it's whatever, that it's okay being okay there. Like we don't have to carry that as guilt or, shame or something. But this last one, I don't know. I think there's something to it, but the ancients called it the dark night of the soul. Brueggemann calls it disorientation. Every spiritual, there are people that have stages of spiritual growth. Like we've talked about Scott Peck. Someone emailed this week, Brian McLaren has one, but they've been around forever and ever. And each one of them includes a phase that the ancients called desolation, or the dark night. That in relationships, a necessary part of the relationship is growing beyond being in love with the relationship to being in love with the person with whom you're in the relationship with. I don't know if that grammatically made any sense. Again, see RSV comments. And so the way the ancients would portray this as God offers new converts something called consolation. And it's the honeymoon phase. I remember this. It's like the Bible, I could not get enough of it. Like God was real, and I saw him everywhere, and he was moving and active. And I just saw, and worship, dude, I could just pour my heart out. And I mean, and then there's this period of, what was I doing? Was that just euphoria? Was that just dopamine? Was that just the same feeling I'd get at a Pearl Jam concert, And so the ancients thought that what God does, and they get this primarily from Psalms and Lamentations and some of David's life, is that God sometimes will introduce felt absence so that you would actually choose to pursue him rather than the gifts that he gives. And it's kind of like a marriage relationship. I mean, I've often thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if you stayed in the honeymoon phase for 30 years? But what's the downside of staying in the honeymoon phase? In the honeymoon phase, you don't really love each other. You love the feeling of each other. Do you know what I mean? You don't know each other. Like, I love my wife so differently now that I've seen who she really is and who I really am, and the ways in which we hurt and anger and frustrate each other and help and bless each other. My choice of yes is not based at all on euphoria. It's based now on something much more significant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so to mature in Christ in faith, one of the ideas is that we go through periods where faith isn't rewarded with the feelings that we want. And so faith instead has to stand on its own two legs as faith, regardless of how we're feeling. And a lot of the way evangelicals portray intimacy with God is emotional.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly running on emotional highs. And this way of understanding it would be that's dangerous. That's trying to live in the honeymoon phase and not actually maturing into something that's deeper and truer, which is reorientation, having walked through the pit.
It's like drug addiction, like when you learn in health class, like how your body spikes in reaction to taking drugs, withdrawal, right? So you peak, and then the valley is the baseline is a little bit lower, and then you peak again to get above the baseline, then you drop a little lower, and then so on and so forth, to the point where after a while, you're just trying to mediate the baseline. And I see that in what you're saying with the church too, is like because a lot of these words that you use, like at the very beginning, you said, the Lord, Jesus will not forsake you.
Yeah.
So that's a line that we hear a lot in the church.
Yes. Well, that's from Jesus, but yes.
Right. But I know, but the way it's used in the church of like,
he'll always make you feel good.
Yeah. Or he'll like to the person who's dying in the hospital bed right now.
Right.
In the way that phrase is used in the church, they feel forsaken. They don't feel God's anything around them. They just feel despair and fear of death and pain and hurt and all those kind of things. Those are all very forsaken
spaces.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you take all the stuff that you're just saying? Because they're like, you keep prefacing with cliche or you could use rhetoric or something like that to say, these are phrases that we all know and have heard, and that's why they become cliches.
Right.
However, they come from a nugget of truth.
Yes.
So it's like, even the last thing you were just talking about, like that can be very encouraging, except if we're in spaces that are still teaching us those words. Like it's like we need to do a grammar lesson, like a vocab lesson on
that's so here's the difference. You'll hear these words in orientation differently than you'll hear them in disorientation or reorientation. Right. So in orientation, oh yeah, of course, they're like super formulaic, cliche. Yes. And again, that's not bad. That's part of orientation or consolation. But
it can be bad if a church is capping at orientation.
That's it.
And trying to mainline just that. Yeah.
That's right. That's
and then
why.
Someone enters a disorientation. They're like, holy crap, God has forsaken me.
Right.
I'm like spinning out here in the wilderness and nobody wants to come with me or help me.
That's right. So that's why these aren't answers. They're clues, maybe, because the ultimate calculus of why God does what God does is beyond us. Yes. All we could do is guess.
Important distinction.
Yeah, it really is. And I think these are solid guesses as to why God isn't like blazingly obvious all of our lives. That makes sense to me. And it does, then it percolates down to me individually, percolates down to me individually about my felt experience with God. Sometimes I feel close, sometimes I feel absent. I've learned to not trust the feeling part of that whole equation. In the same way I don't trust the feeling part of my marriage, right? Because if my marriage were solely based on being infatuated with my spouse after 23 years, that's not happening a lot.
Yeah.
Right? What happens a lot is enjoyment, irritation, right? Frustration, silence. I mean, and the stubborn commitment to love in spite of those things. And so if faith is loyalty, which is something we've talked about before, then loyalty has to go far beyond what mood I'm in that day. And that's why so much of this drip of orientation, every service needs to end in a pretty red bow. Christmas is just so sentimental and wonderful. And all of that is toxic. And because we're dealing with a God who does veil himself, a God who does disappoint people, a God who allows people to be disoriented. And no one's prepared for that. And so we get shipwrecked on the idea that there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with God, or there's something wrong with the faith I have. And that's ignoring the very biblical idea that this is a normal part of the whole experience. And that the orientation, the euphoria that we were sold as what Christianity is only the beginning part, in the same way that's only the beginning part of what marriage is.
Because that's exactly what it is. That is exactly how you just said that. Like, it is, orientation is sold as what it means to be
Right.
a Christian. And when somebody starts to enter into disorientation, oftentimes there's no space or room for them.
That's right. That's right.
Man, it'd be really interesting to have churches that were built with, like, we have a pastor of orientation, a pastor of disorientation, a pastor of reorientation, and everything is like hand in hand with each other.
Yeah.
So there's like a process of like
funny.
this new believer that's like just come in and they're full of wonder and awe and are just trying to learn some basic tenets of things, and they have that emotional thing because this is new and fresh and they feel like they're a part of what blah blah blah.
Yep.
But knowing that disorientation is down the road,
That's right.
and that reorientation is down the road, and those things are not mutually exclusive, nor do they cancel out the one before them.
That's right.
Or
Exactly.
whatever. Like, it'd be really fun, maybe not fun, but it would be really interesting to see a church that was built, or churches built in that way that try to walk people through all of those, knowing that they're safe within each of them.
Dude.
That all of them are purposeful and real and healthy.
Yes.
And
well, think about it. Oh, that's so good, Tim. That's so good, because I'm thinking immediately about marriage counseling. So marriage counseling is, imagine if you only did marriage counseling by people who were married 3 years or less.
right.
So here's...
Or not at all.
Right, exactly. You'd be like, no, you would need people who are so safe they can bless the euphoria you're in. And you're telling them, you're here, this is where you guys are going to struggle. And the premarital couple's like, oh no, we love each other, it'll be fine. Right. And you know they're idiots. You know it's going to be difficult. And
Totally.
But you can still rejoice in that, right?
Yeah.
But you're preparing them. The train wreck is coming. And when the train wreck comes and you wake up next to your spouse and realize, oh, I married the wrong person, we're here for that too.
Yeah.
And then you fight through that space and you realize, oh, there is no right person. The problem is me.
Yeah.
Right? Then we're there for that space too. I mean, that is exactly what we ought to be doing for the life of faith. I mean, that's so powerful.
And then that couple at that point, when they're in the reorientation, likely can help a new couple in the orientation.
Totally. All right. I'm tired.
I have about 90 more questions though.
I know, you're the best. You really are. My brain is shrinking. I didn't want to leave the this topic without, because that's one, I don't know, that's one I've never really heard talked about much. And I don't know. It
feels like the church is in a season of disorientation. And, we were texting yesterday about scuffles on Twitter and some of these organizations that are kind of grasping at straws now to hold their relevancy and their dominance in the theological world. Yeah. And you just see, like when you were talking about being hopeful, hopeful about the church, I am very hopeful with a lot of the younger generation. And we've talked about this a lot, but there is a hunger within a lot of the younger generation for transparency and humility. And they're not interested in the lights and the fog. They really want to, they want to be seen and heard, and they want to see and hear. Yep. And so that gives me a lot of hope, because I see them as just kind of cutting through the BS and being like, I'm not interested in your grandstanding. I'm interested in why did you decide that you want to advocate for God? Yeah. Show me. Yeah. Tell me, let me, and then, maybe I want to be an advocate. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's just this kind of drumming up within the younger generations that obviously that's not across the board, but that gives me hope for the future of all this.
I also think old people, the right old people I'm seeing, because I talk to younger pastors on a regular basis, and they all say they're looking for spiritual parents. Yeah. And so I've
been looking forever.
What's that?
We just had a conversation in therapy about how many years I kept trying. I'd work for churches and stuff, trying to find a mentor. I was just so hungry for an older person to speak into me and could never get one.
Yeah.
It was just, why is that so hard?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Yeah.
But you know what's interesting? You had, just real short, you had a good conversation on Holy Post this last week about a podcast with a rabbi, and one of the conversation points that she brought up, I think, was about generational responses to Israel.
Oh yeah.
So the older
Yeah.
generation seeing Israel as a smaller, weaker in need,
vulnerable.
bullied country, and then the younger generation has only known them as a dominant military force. And
Yeah.
so both of those are true.
Right.
But the generations are fighting over who has the absolute truth within that.
That's right.
And so that's, as a metaphor for this conversation, like there is a zeal and a truth to the younger generation that needs to be acknowledged and seen and heard. But there is a zeal and a truth and a like a weathered
Yes.
understanding of the world the older generation has that also needs to be seen and heard and held.
That's right.
And those two things should not be, they're two sides of a coin, or so. I don't know. I'm looking for the
No, you got it. No,
it's like,
exactly.
we
right.
need to have
Yes.
those generational bridges, those hands kind of holding over this stuff, because there is wisdom in the older generation, but there is a hunger for truth and things in the younger generation.
Right.
And those two things should not be at war with each other.
Correct. Because the healthiest spiritual parents recognize we bless orientation, we bless disorientation, we bless reorientation, and then we do it again.
Yep.
Right?
Forever.
It's all okay. And yeah, man, there's something there. There's been a lot of study, and I'm just now getting into how churches can replicate, for better or worse, family systems.
Yeah.
And so churches have this great opportunity to reparent parents and kids, or to continue to facilitate harm and trauma. And I don't know enough to say anything more than that, except to go, oh man, I think there's something there.
Something to chew on.
Yeah, speaking of something to chew on, ladies and gentlemen, we're outie. We're outie 3000. Tim, on behalf of Tim's intestines, on behalf of my lungs, and now my wife, her lungs and sinuses, we bless you and we pray for your continued health. Thank you for allowing us to be a small part of your day-to-day. We love it. See ya.